sözü vermek istiyorum. Öncelikle ilk panelistimiz ERTICO CEO'su Sayın Jakob BANGSGAARD. Kendisi özgeçmiş hakkında kısaca da bilgi sunmak istiyorum. Aalborg Üniversitesi, Danimarka Aalborg Üniversitesi İktisat Bölümünden mezun. 26 yıllık ulaşım ve mobilite deneyimine sahip. ERTICO'da 2001'den 2006'ya kadar Uluslararası İlişkiler ve İletişim Direktörü olarak çalışmış ve son olarak da yine ERTICO'da CEO olarak hizmet sunmaktadır. Bu noktada geleceğin ulaşım politikaları ve AUS bağlamında bizimle paylaşacağı sunumunu arz etmek için sözü kendisine veriyorum. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to take you through what we are working on in ERTICO at the moment, how we see the developments in the mobility sector, and what we're doing about it. I hope. There we go. So for those of you who do not know who we are, ERTICO, we are 120 partners from these 8 different sectors here. So we were created almost 30 years ago to make the mobility sector cleaner, safer, and more efficient by the use of new technologies. So it was created by the European Commission to have a platform for stakeholders to work together and to bring things to market. So deployment was very much at the center of our activity. We started with 16 partners, 5 sectors, and as you see, moving to 120 partners and 8 sectors. When I started 3 years ago in ERTICO, I started immediately looking at where is it we want to take ITS towards 2030. So we made our Vision 2030 plan, where we in the team looked at how can we, together with our partners, create the future instead of just react to the changes for the future. So if we want to create a future which is safer, cleaner, more efficient, where do we need to be by 2025 if we want to reach the target of 2030 of zero fatalities or zero emissions, etc. So we were quite blunt with our vision. You have to be ambitious, and we were. Whether we will reach what we originally defined as our 2030 target, we will see. But at least the ambition led to that we launched a lot of activities that could bring us to the milestones on these roadmaps. So we have 4 areas that you can see: connected automated driving, transport and logistics, clean mobility, and urban mobility. And the names that you see on this map, those are actually projects, activities that we are running to support our roadmap towards 2030. These projects can be activities like 5G Mobix with 60 partners from around the world looking at how to use 5G in testing cross-border connectivity for automation, for instance. So those are the projects. Some projects are 25 million euros, some are 1 million euros. We have a total budget of 250 to 500 million euros in projects each year. So one of the reasons why we looked at where will we be by 2030 was that we were looking at the transformation that was happening in the mobility sector with more and more focus on connectivity, automation, electrification, the users, the end users, multimodality, and interoperability between systems. And all this is a connected ecosystem with all the players that today we call it the Internet of Mobility, for easier to understand for ourselves and for those we work with, both for people and for goods. And here we have a number of challenges because we are moving from standalone services into cooperative, connected, automated services. And that is really, first of all, you have the mixture of the old and the new, and you also have to certainly to work across modes, across systems and services. Then we also have the constant changes in the connectivity networks, the next generation networks. How do we future-proof our systems and services? Then data privacy, security, sharing has become a more and more urgent task for us because we know there are more and more challenges in this field. And then we are not used to working with the end users. We have been working for many years on developing systems and services without really thinking about the users of these systems. We were just pushing this down into the onto the mobility system, where now this is what this service can do for your rail transport or for your road transport. But the user has not been so central in this process as they are today, because they are much more demanding today than they used to be. We have also a big challenge with the decarbonization of the transport sector, and there the European Commission has launched their European Green Deal. This Green Deal is going to look at what can transport, among other sectors, do, and that is, they are mentioning areas like mobility as a service. They're mentioning, of course, the decarbonization, the electrification of the fleet. And then they are mentioning also some restrictions in mobility through different pricing schemes. So this, for Europe, this will be a very important guide to how policies are made in the coming years. The Green Deal is very high on the agenda of the European Commission. Then another challenge that we have is that not only cooperation or interaction between systems and services, but also between partners. So we have to work with the public-private sector. We have to work with the research sector. We have to look at all different levels, cities being more and more dominant, regions, national, European, worldwide. So standardization is key in this respect. Our partners, those we work with, they are more and more operating on a global level, and therefore we also need to take into account what is happening outside Europe. We have a lot of disruption in the whole mobility sector, and that has created in the last year, suddenly you see electric scooters everywhere or dockless bike sharing and so on. So you have the micromobility coming to market, disrupting how we think mobility, but also the mobility services. I lost it. Yep. But also the new mobility services like Uber and other ride-sharing, car-sharing systems, etc. So there are a lot of benefits in this, and there are a lot of challenges in this. Some of the benefits we see is we can really improve the urban mobility by taking people out of their single occupancy vehicle and make them share rides or use different services than just their own car. We can also strengthen the public transport because people who are used to using your own car, you can also, by accessing the whole mobility system through, for instance, a ride sharing or an electric scooter, you suddenly get to the point where the public transport takes over. We also make it more attractive because instead of getting from a point where you didn't want to go from to a point where you didn't want to go to, we actually make you go from A to B, and then you have a full service by one through one click on an app, for instance. We release urban space by taking away cars. Of course, we can create car sharing areas, etc. Some cities have already started this. The traffic management can be improved through increased traffic data, where you can then use this data to do improved management of the traffic. What is the challenge in this is to make this as convenient as using your own vehicle. Today it becomes less and less convenient in European cities to drive in your own vehicle because you will be stuck all the time. There will be more and more restrictions for you. So what we're looking at was how can we make this service for the future as convenient as it is for you today. And it's starting to grow throughout the world. We are working with more than 100 companies on developing the area of mobility as a service on a global level. We are working with ITS America for the US market. We are working with Asia Pacific, for ITS Asia Pacific for the Asia Pacific market. So this is really something that is moving very fast. We started this work 4 years ago, 4 to 5 years, 4.5 years ago. And we started with 3 organizations, and now we are 101 organizations behind this. SUMP is also something that the European Commission has been working on to make some action plans for sustainable urban mobility. And there we have been very much helping the Commission to draft the action plan for mobility as a service, where we are looking at what are the phases that a city needs to look at when they want to first analyze, investigate what kind of services will work for my city, and then into the testing, the deployment, the monitoring, the evaluation of the services. So we give a toolbox for cities who want to deploy new mobility services, where the different phases, where they have a kind of a strategy for the different phases. One of the big challenges we've had in the last years in respect to all the new services coming is the regulation that are currently applying in cities throughout the world, basically, are often outdated and based on old models, transport models. And this is not only the case with automation, it's also the case when it comes to new mobility services like ride-sharing services or bike sharing or car sharing services. At the same time, we have all these new services coming to market with different tokens, different payment systems. And that means it's another challenge that we have, that what about the users? If you have 30 apps on your phone, it's not as convenient as using your car. So it has to be a one payment system also for your mobility service. Then we have the last picture there, it's about the urban freight distribution. That is also going to be a challenge if we all want to have shoes delivered to our home address or office address, then suddenly there will be a big challenge for the cities to manage all these single freight deliveries in the future. The good thing is that it is something that the consumers want, so that means that there's a business case for this. So what we are trying to push for is to facilitate the take-up, help the consumer to be able to use these services. And for that you need the infrastructure, of course. You need a political will on a national, regional, local level. You need to look at how to change the old-fashioned regulation so that it embraces the innovation that is coming and not blocking for new services coming. You also can create incentives. You are creating a new transport system that is actually good for the economy, it's good for the cities, and therefore it's also it's also useful to provide incentives for the generation of these services. The ITS Congress is, I just had to mention that this is one of the platforms where we meet the whole ITS community, where we share information about this, where we do stock taking on where is the development, what needs still to be done. It's compared to other congresses, the ITS Congress is very much focused on both public and private sector. So it's not a trade show, it's very much a place where we discuss deployment issues and we discuss the next step for the developments of services. We had yesterday, I heard a very successful training with our ERTICO Academy here in Ankara. I was not. I arrived yesterday evening, so I was not able to participate. But this is a way that we can now go out with a team of experts and do training with our partners on different aspects. So here I mentioned mobility as service, digital freight, electromobility, CITS benefits, and traffic management are some of the topics. The startup activity, I mentioned it this morning. Startups become more and more important for ERTICO, and this is really where we can get a lot of new innovation and where we can merge what we have been doing for years with some new views on the same problems. So finally, what is important is that the speed of change in this sector is going faster and faster. So we might think that we've got it now, but then there will be a new thing coming. So what is important is that we put in place a framework that can handle innovation, that can embrace innovation for the future, because the future is already there and it's already challenging our way of looking at this. So for this to handle all these and to create the benefit of all this, we need to work together. So thank you very much.
Teşekkür ediyoruz Sayın Jakob BANGSGAARD'a.